Well, I think the beauty of any roast is the roastee.
Done good, though, Kevin. The black community is so proud of you. Right now, George Floyd is looking up at us all, laughing so hard that he can't breathe.
Being game for whatever is going to happen.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it happens that the roastee did not research what the roastee was getting into.
Yeah. Sometimes they sit in that chair and don't really understand what comes with that chair.
Yes,
so,
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, when you sit in that chair, it's like, okay, have at it. Like, go. Have a good time.
Right.
Know that I get the mic last and I'm going to have a good time.
Right.
But you're not going to make me uncomfortable in the chair. I'm not going to let you get the luxury of seeing me be discomfortable. Like, I'm not going to sit and give a reaction of, oh my God, this stuff hurts, what you're saying.
Katt Williams called it, years before the rest of us caught on. Katt sat across from Shannon Sharpe and dropped every name, every detail, every pattern, and people laughed it off like he was being petty. But here we are. Because what played out on that Netflix stage wasn't comedy. It was something else entirely. Kevin Hart didn't just host a roast. He co-signed a spectacle where white comedians stood on stage and used black paint as a punchline, and Kevin sat in that chair, grinning like he was in on the joke. Now, his ex-wife, Torrei Hart, the woman who was in the room when Kevin was just another unknown comic grinding on the East Coast, has finally said what a lot of people in the community have been feeling for years. That the man the world thinks they know isn't who he actually is. And this roast didn't expose something new. It confirmed what those closest to him already knew. He's not the guy who's going to stand up for you. He's the guy who's going to laugh at you if it keeps the right doors open. He did it to Torrei. And if you watched what happened when Sheryl Underwood's late husband was turned into a punchline and Kevin didn't flinch, you can see the exact same pattern playing out in real time.
So, Kevin, the black community is so proud of you. Right now, George Floyd is looking up at us all, laughing so hard that he can't breathe.
Here's what people need to understand. Kevin Hart's Netflix roast wasn't just controversial. It became a cultural flashpoint that divided the black community in a way that very few comedy specials ever have. The moment that lit the fuse? Tony Hinchcliffe, a comedian widely known inside comedy circles for pushing racial material to its absolute limit, walked onto that stage and used George Floyd's final moments as the setup for a punchline. Not a metaphor, not a commentary. A straight-up joke about a man who was filmed taking his last breath while pinned to the ground and begging for his life. And the man whose name was on the marquee sat right there, watched it happen, and kept smiling.
Full of degenerate scumbags, and they're going to be up here saying a lot of racist, terrible things tonight. I've got a nice PG short joke that I'd like you guys to be a part of, okay? Kevin is so short. Kevin's so short that they're going to have to...
And Hinchcliffe didn't stop there. He also went after Sheryl Underwood not by targeting her career or her personality, but by dragging her late husband into it. A man who lost his battle with severe depression and took his own life back in 1990. That's not a roast joke. That's a eulogy, being used as a prop. Then Shane Gillis followed up with material that reportedly included a lynching reference, and once again, Kevin Hart, the executive producer, the man who reportedly had final say on the entire production, sat in that chair and let it ride. No pause. No reaction. Not even a look that said this crossed a line.
Committed suicide 3 years into their marriage. I've been sitting next to her for 2 hours, and I have to ask, how did he last that long?
I didn't know exactly what they were going to say. Like, when they talked to me about how they were coming at me, I said, it better be funny. That's the first bar, the hurdle. But I also told them, whatever you say, it's not me that you got to deal with. It's who's waiting for you outside.
Now, credit where it's due. Sheryl Underwood handled herself like a professional. She didn't break. She didn't storm off. She sat there, took it. And when it was her turn to speak, she didn't waste a single second. She addressed every shot that had been taken at her, her appearance, her weight, and yes, her husband and she flipped it. She's been doing this for decades. She's not new to people underestimating her. But even Sheryl, who is famously thick-skinned, later made it clear that the jokes about her late husband caught her completely off guard.
Action. From the roast?
Yes.
Not from the people that aren't aware of what a roast is. The roast and roasting is a specific format that has existed for years. It is hard-hitting jokes that also have shock factor potential. You're making the world and environment that you are operating in as uncomfortable as possible, because those are the jokes that people...
The roast was supposed to be Kevin Hart's coronation moment, his victory lap. A Netflix special that would cement his place as one of the biggest names in entertainment, not just in comedy, but in the full Hollywood landscape. That was the plan. Instead, what followed the release was a full-scale PR disaster. And rather than getting ahead of it with a clear statement, Kevin Hart went on a media tour, hitting podcast after podcast, interview after interview to explain what a roast is. Like the problem was that the audience didn't understand the format. Like if he just broke it down clearly enough, everyone would stop being upset.
It wasn't a tasteful joke to our culture, to our audience, but our audience that's watching the roast, if you're watching the roast, you get why they're doing it. You get why the racial humor is on the table. Like, it's not, I wasn't shocked. Like,
here's the thing Kevin keeps missing, and it's not a small thing. A roast, in its traditional format, is about the person sitting in that chair. The entire point is to take the subject apart, embarrass them, expose their contradictions, dig into their history, and make them sweat. Dean Martin's Friars Club roasts in the 70s. The Comedy Central era with Pamela Anderson, Charlie Sheen, Justin Bieber, the roastee, is always the target. That's the whole architecture. But if you go back and watch Kevin's roast from top to bottom, you'll notice something strange. A significant portion of the jokes weren't even about Kevin Hart. They were about other celebrities. And whenever they did go after Kevin directly, the punchline almost always looped back around to celebrating how successful and rich he is. So the roast barely roasted him. Meanwhile, George Floyd, a man with no connection to Kevin Hart's career, got turned into a punchline. And here's a detail that didn't get nearly enough attention. Michael Che, who was reportedly approached to be part of the event, pulled out before it aired. He later indicated that after seeing how the writing room was structured, reportedly stacked with white writers, he already knew what direction the material was going in. He made his decision quietly and stepped away. Kevin, on the other hand, made his decision loudly. He stayed, smiled, and then went on the Breakfast Club to explain why we should all just relax about it.
Production. We're live. The more is what? Like, what is it that you expect me? You want me to take a live production and stand up and fight Tony or have a reaction? Like, Tony told a joke. It wasn't a tasteful joke to us. We didn't like it. Okay. Hey, man, fuck that joke. Remove me from it. I didn't say it. If you are upset, if the night went on, that's a different conversation. Nothing I can do. It's a production. It's a live production. I'm not compromising the live production for a reaction of what? What do you want me to do? Just drag him off?
And that's the contradiction that people keep pointing to. Because Kevin has told this story two different ways depending on who's asking. In one version, he's the executive producer. He built this from the ground up. He had creative control. He was proud of the product. In the other version, he's practically a spectator, just a guy sitting in a chair watching a live show unfold with no ability to stop anything. You can't claim both. Either you were in control of your production or you weren't.
I know that within my apology, I've taken 10 years to put my apology to work. I yet to go back to that version of the immature comedian that once was. I moved on. I'm a grown man. I'm cultured. I'm a manufacturer. I'm a guy that understands me. I look at life through a different lens, and because of that, I live it.
But here's what makes this so difficult to take at face value, because according to multiple reports from people connected to the production, Kevin Hart was extremely specific about what was and wasn't allowed in that room. Very specific. Jokes about his children? Off the table completely. Material about his cheating history, specifically the 2017 incident where he was caught on tape while his second wife was pregnant? Also reportedly blocked. He didn't want any of that making it to air. And, reportedly, jokes that framed him as a bad husband or a repeat cheater were flagged and pulled. But a joke about a man who was killed on camera? About a woman's husband who took his own life? Those made the final cut with no issue. Now, let's put that next to 2018. When Kevin's old tweets resurfaced tweets with homophobic language he'd posted years before the response was immediate and aggressive. He stepped down from hosting the Oscars within days. He went on a full apology tour. He worked every relationship he had in Hollywood and in the LGBTQ community to contain the damage. He did press. He did interviews. He did everything short of a full billboard campaign to make it right. But for the black community, the people who built his fan base from the ground up, he went on the Breakfast Club and told us we don't understand comedy.
I said, I was the first one to go up too, so I was the first one to do a Paul Walker joke. The room, it was going well, and the room got so quiet. I said, Justin Bieber got arrested for drunk driving. Unfortunately, it wasn't for Paul Walker. And then it just got really quiet. And then I said, what? He has a movie coming out. He's doing great.
Would you like a massage?
And this is where the selective sensitivity becomes impossible to ignore. Because Kevin Hart, when his own reputation was on the line, has shown he absolutely knows how to draw a line. He knows what it looks like to step in and say, this stops here. Justin Bieber did it at his own roast. The moment a Paul Walker joke landed wrong and the room went ice cold, Bieber made clear that the joke wasn't acceptable. That specific bit was pulled. No debate. No damage control press tour after the fact. Tom Brady did the same thing during his Netflix roast. When a roaster started going in a direction involving Robert Kraft that Brady wasn't comfortable with, he physically intervened mid-sentence. Stopped it before it could land. Both of those men used their power as the person in the chair to protect someone else. Kevin had that exact same power. He chose not to use it. And the community he grew up in, the community that paid to see his early stand-up shows, the community that made him a household name before Hollywood ever called they noticed. So now the black community is too sensitive. That's the framing. That's what Kevin and his defenders keep landing on. But let's actually look at the history here, because the pattern is older than this roast. Torrei Hart was there from the very beginning. She and Kevin started out together when he was still an unknown, working small venues up and down the East Coast, trying to find his footing. By multiple accounts, including Torrei's own public statements over the years, she was deeply involved in helping develop his comedic voice during those early years. She helped shape his delivery. She was in the room when the jokes were being written. She invested in him before there was anything to invest in. And when Kevin's career started taking off, when the doors to Hollywood started opening, she watched something shift in him. Because Kevin figured something out early, you don't get the big room by making the people in the big room uncomfortable. You get there by making them laugh. At yourself. At your community. At the things they find funny. He survived cheating on his pregnant wife in 2017 and came out with barely a dent. He survived the homophobic tweet controversy in 2018. He's been photographed at Diddy's events during a period that is now under intense public scrutiny, and even that hasn't slowed him down. Even Jay-Z and Beyoncé have had their names pulled into those conversations. And through all of it, he kept using Torrei, their marriage, their divorce, the most personal parts of her life as material. She asked him publicly to stop. He kept going until he'd gotten every last laugh out of it. The reason none of it stopped his career isn't luck. It's by design. Kevin Hart became the version of himself that Hollywood executives could count on. He was willing to take roles other black comedians turned down because the content was beneath them. He was willing to lean into stereotypes that made white audiences comfortable. He was willing to say yes when everyone else was saying absolutely not, and the industry rewarded him every single time. And that's exactly how Kevin Hart ended up where he is. Not because he was the funniest comedian in the room, not because he outworked everyone else, but because he mastered something that Hollywood values more than talent compliance. He wore the dress. After years of being on record saying he'd never do it, he wore it. He played into every racial and professional stereotype that his movies required. He took the checks and kept his mouth shut about what those roles actually asked of him. And when the Oscar homophobic tweet controversy hit, watch how fast he moved. Within 24 hours of initially refusing to issue another apology, he reversed completely. He was back on his knees, publicly asking for forgiveness, working every connection he had to make sure the right people said the right things about him. That's not a man who acts on principle. That's a man who acts on access. And he knows exactly who controls that access. So when the George Floyd joke landed and Kevin sat there smiling, that wasn't a miscalculation. That was a choice. Condemning that joke in the moment would have meant making the white audience in that room uncomfortable. It would have meant creating tension with the network. It would have meant going against the comedian he'd invited onto his stage. And Kevin Hart doesn't do that. Not for the black community. Not for Torrei. Not for Sheryl. Not for anyone who can't sign his next check. He went on The Breakfast Club and brushed off the question about George Floyd's brother like it was an inconvenience. And that moment, that specific moment, told you everything. When has Kevin Hart ever stood up for something that cost him something? When has he ever taken a hit for the community that made him? So we're asking, is Kevin Hart a sellout who never actually had the black community's back? Or is this just who he's always been and we just weren't paying close enough attention? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're new here, make sure you're subscribed, because we don't hold back.